Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot, and welcome to today's reading. So today's reading is it's kind of what happens if you just put it all out there? What happens if you just put your whole self out there? And it's a communication question, but it stems from a question I got from one of you, and in this case, this person was talking about being very honest about their thoughts, their feelings, and then kind of blocking and walking away. And so I know I also got a question from someone else that was kind of similar, but it did not exactly involve blocking or walking away. And so I thought maybe we can just go kind of open the question up and say, what is it that happens if you are to be very honest and just kind of put yourself out there? So it'll be, as always, a general reading for this collective. It's not going to resonate with everybody, shouldn't resonate with everybody, but if it resonates with you, maybe take a look at some of the other messages. And if you're not already subscribed, maybe this would be a good time for that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. And at this point, since we're kind of looking at what happens if you put yourself out there, and particularly in this situation, but I guess it could be applied to other things. What happens? What happens if you put yourself out there? That's going to kind of be the main question. So let's look at the energy that's happening around you right now. And so it's kind of where sometimes we have a very divine masculine centered reading. This one is absolutely appropriate to expand to that divine masculine. And most of you are the divine feminine, whether, it doesn't matter what your gender is. It's really the role you're playing in the relationship. And oftentimes when you've got, and not every time, but I get that most of the time when you, okay, when you have a runner and a chaser type of dynamic, that chaser is often the role of the divine feminine, where the runner is that unhealed divine masculine. You guys watching these cards that come out? You got the King of Pentacles and the Two of Cups. And so at this point, it's kind of more of it's more related to you. It's more related to you, even though the place where you may be really putting yourself out there might be relevant to this divine masculine. So this is you've got a really balanced sort of energy around you right now. The Six of Pentacles sticks out for me. So you've got King of Pentacles, Two of Cups, Six of Pentacles, and that Six of Pentacles is really standing out to me because it just feels like there is so much, there's so much more balance in this. And, you can see the scale on the card, but this is about balanced and equal give and take. It's about getting back what you put in. The Two of Cups is about partnership. The King of Pentacles is about deserving. And so it's about you feeling that you deserve this. If you remember the Emperor card that came out in a recent reading, could have been yesterday's reading, or maybe yesterday's, it might have been a recent extended. I can't remember which one it was. But the Emperor came out, and it was about it was on your bridge question, I think. And it was about your masculine energy kind of coming to support you. This is a version of that support. So the King of Pentacles showing that deservedness, feeling like you do deserve what is possible for you is kind of a big deal. And it's a step in the right direction. It's not just self-worth here. It's actually feeling like you belong in the situation. I love that. Interesting. So you got the Nine of Cups. Nine of Cups, and it's all about understanding what it is that constitutes your wish fulfillment. So this is something that many of you have been searching for. Many of you have been able to identify parts of what that wish fulfillment would look like, but now you're looking at a broader picture. So already I feel like you're approaching this with a really healthy, wide sort of perspective. So putting yourself out there is not going to be a shallow affair in your situation. However, you're also well insulated to some things that maybe used to really bother you. You're going to run across some things that haven't changed, and you're not going to expect them to have changed, because despite the fact that you've got some really positive things going on here, there's still a lot of hurt. And there's just still a lot of feeling of realism where you understand that not everybody's going to be in the same place. There will be some things that haven't changed. You're aware of that. There are going to be some situations where you are not necessarily treated properly or given that balanced energy back that you put into a situation. And in that case, you're going to be better at not having a real hard time with it. You have a bit of an insulation to that feeling, as I think I was saying, and there's a feeling of not getting too wrapped up in it, not too concerned about it. This is a card, the Nine of Swords in the reverse is a card of not having too much anxiety. And this Empress is nice and well-rounded as well. So when we see that well-rounded masculine energy coming out with that King of Pentacles, and then also this feminine energy, that is a fairly well-rounded situation to begin with. So if you're feeling that, and if you're not, it looks like you probably should be soon. If you're feeling that, this could be a really positive situation for you. Maybe it's a good time for you to consider putting things out there. I don't necessarily get that it's easy or that it's like, okay, I now feel like I'm ready. I also don't know that you ever would feel like you're ready if you're considering a communication like this, or honestly, it doesn't necessarily just have to be a communication to your person. This could be broader than that. Some of you do not have access to make communication to your person because you yourself are blocked, And so this could be putting yourself out there in a very different way. It could be putting yourself out there with regard to that thing that sets your soul on fire, and that's going to have, you've got a similar energy around you regardless of what form this takes. So if you don't feel like you're ready to communicate with this person, but you are ready to start your business, it's still, you could use the question that way, because it's a collective, it's a relatively large group of people, and this is the energy that's behind it. So you make it appropriate to you. So if you're not going to talk to your person because you can't, or because you're heading off to do something else, that's fine. But there's not necessarily always going to be comfort in this. So the Two of Coins is that kind of comfortable balance that you feel in the day-to-day, like you've got yourself together. Same with this Nine of Coins, also doesn't necessarily feel like you've got it together, but for some reason you're okay with things. You're relatively okay with the fact that things may not go perfectly. Like you've kind of been down that path before where things haven't always gone perfectly, and you're not necessarily in a bad place. You're going to get past it just fine if this communication or this situation does not go the way that you would want for it to go. Interesting. This is very consistent with some of the other stories that I've heard, and maybe even one that I'm living right now. I did take up an instrument. I have my first concert tomorrow, and I'm getting to a place where that's me putting myself out there in a whole new way. You may be ready to start a business. You may be ready to jump into a new job. You may be ready to apply for a new job that requires you to have a courageous conversation. There's something here that requires a courageous response. So, okay, and here's what I was feeling. The Temperance card is here, and then we've got the Two of Coins that's in the reverse over here. This is that not quite feeling like you're on balance for the day. The feeling like something's a little bit off. You woke up from a dream that stuck with you a little bit too much, good or bad. It's got you thrown off, that sort of thing. But this Temperance card says that deep down everything is fine. And this Queen of Swords is a remarkably balanced, no-nonsense sort of Queen of Swords. Sometimes it feels like it is just cutting things out. Sometimes it feels like it's making rash decisions. Despite the character on the card, if you've seen this, this is a fairly balanced feeling Queen of Swords. And it's got this great sense of being able to use what you've got there. If you need to make a quick decision, you will be able to do so. There's a lot of balance in that, but it's generally, I think it's overall balanced feminine energy, and you've got a lot of balance in your masculine as well. So this bodes well for you. Regardless of where you're wanting to put yourself out there, it means that you're in a stable place to respond to whatever happens as a result of it. All right, so let's get into it. Let's see, this is more, okay, so this is what you need to know. what you need to know about what happens if you put everything out there. It's not necessarily foretelling what will happen. It's, hey, here's what you need to be aware of. So here's the energy that you're in if you're wanting to make a communication. Okay, reconciliation. This is internal self-reconciliation. That is you reconciling with you, and making it possible for you also to reconcile with a situation or with another person. So there is a lot of power in that. It's probably even likely to happen, but it's going to show you the boundaries with the Five of Pentacles here. It will show you the boundaries of your healing. Here are the places where it feels like you're already you're fairly well healed, and then here are some places maybe where you're not. And you'll be able to see that, reckon with it, and as I like to say, grab it by the tail and be prepared to address what comes out. So this will be a time of knowing yourself, and a time of finding and establishing balance. You may not find that you're in that balance all the time, but you will find that it is in your foundation. And this is something that's been coming out with some of the recent readings anyway. So this is kind of an exciting thing. This is a good place for you to be. Even if the conversation, you don't get a response. The act of putting it out there, and I'm not saying just put it out there if that's not what you were already thinking. If you're asking the question of whether you should be honest with this person and you have the opportunity to do so, here's an answer. This is what it's going to do for you, but it doesn't necessarily tell us how it's going to turn out. It's going to bring you balance. It's going to bring you some awareness of where you are and kind of what's happening in your mind and in your world. With the Five of Pentacles, it's going to give you an idea of where you're healed and where you're not. And I get the sense that this has everything to do with your feelings around it, not necessarily their response to it. If you're talking to your person, this is more as you're hitting send, you're recognizing what your fears are. Fears of rejection, abandonment, potential betrayal, the big three, the ones that often come out when we have the Five of Pentacles. The Empress, though, this is where I could see it throwing you off a little bit, even if you have a conversation with your person and it's a favorable conversation. Just be aware you're coming into this with relatively balanced Empress energy, and you run the risk of unbalancing your Empress energy. So I just want to point something out with this deck. There are a couple of major arcana cards that are repeated. Okay, the Empress is one of those. Now, these Empress cards have different feels to them oftentimes when I pull them out, but in this case, I would say it's really not so different. This is that divine feminine balance that's happening with this Empress, which actually is just kind of what's in your energy. And this is actually throwing you off of that balance. So this has the potential to throw you off of that balance, which doesn't say don't put yourself out there. Just be aware that you may have some cleanup work to do if you decide to write that note, or after I do this concert, or whatever, whatever it is, you are going to have some cleanup to do after you're done with it. And you will not be in control of all of the results. There will be elements of it that are completely outside of your control, such as the response that you receive. There's not much that you can assume about it. There's not much that you can expect. Maybe you expect them to respond within a certain range of responses, but you really never quite know what you're going to get. So just be aware that this is putting yourself out. I mean, it's putting yourself out there in the unknown, which you're actually asking that question. But there are so many different ways that you're going to be able to go from this. So you're basically going to be opening up a world of possibilities with this, whether you're starting a business, giving a concert, calling a person that you haven't talked to and telling them the whole truth. And then, whether you stand there or whether you walk away, you have a lot of options. And I don't know, one thing that comes out for this for me, I have to say, I'm not sure that defining what you plan to do afterwards is going to be good at this point, because you may not know if it feels right to walk away or to block them or to take any specific action until you've seen this response, until you've seen your response, honestly, to this situation, until you work through it. Because the act The feelings that happen even just around building up to this are going to be very telling for you. That's going to help you understand where your fears are and where they're not. Um, okay, so Ace of Wands, it's going to, expect there to be a moment in there where you say, oh gosh, I just executed on something and now I wish I hadn't. Or I got myself into this mess and now I wish I could just not have to worry about it. I mean, that's certainly, if you hit send and have a moment of regret and then you get yourself back together and say, wait, I've got no control over this, but I knew this on the front end. I knew I was prepared for that. This is kind of where that Empress energy starts to become a little bit unbalanced, but it's also part of what happens when you take a risk. So you've got options. Maybe don't assume what you're going to do or what you're going to think or feel once you're done. Also, it's not a one and done sort of proposition. This is this action that you're considering, whether it is deep communication with them, sending them a letter that tells them everything and then walking away, whatever that is, there is a sense of like you might feel like there's finality to it. Oh, I can't wait till I get to the other end of this, or I can't wait until I know what the response is going to be, or that sort of thing. But it's with the Six of Wands in the reverse here, it's a matter of things not yet being resolved. Like it's Six of Wands is victory after a long battle, and when we've got it in the reverse like this, the battle rages on. It's not over yet. That's really what I get from this. You've got the Two of Wands. This puts you in a place where you're going to choose a direction at a crossroads, which really just kind of reminds me of that Seven of Cups saying, don't make any decisions about how you're going to react because you might feel differently than you anticipate. There may be some surprises for you in here. Bring your Page of Wands sort of energy, which that Page of Wands energy it's courageous, but it's also creative. It's willing to try new things. It's very curious. There's a lot of curiosity in this energy. It has a lot to do with not necessarily expecting an outcome or a response in particular. This Queen of Coins in the reverse reminds me of the feeling of this Empress in reverse, where it kind of throws you off your game. And for a little while, maybe it's, why did I think this was going to be okay? Why did I let myself do this? That same feeling with the Ace of Wands over here. Why did I engage in this? But look at this. You also have the Lovers. This is no risk, no reward kind of energy right here. So if this is about reaching out to your person, it does not mean that the choice you make is to go into union necessarily, but what it means is the choice is there. So here is a situation where you're now creating a crossroads, which you will be determining a direction, but it's not as obvious as it seems. You have more options than you might realize, and you don't necessarily know until you get there how you're definitely going to react. But this is going to put you in a situation where you have a choice. And if it is a choice in love, it does give you that option to move toward that union. It may be that you have several other turns to take before you get there, because we saw that Judgment card up there, and the Judgment card was about reconciliation. But remember, you've got to have that internal reconciliation before you can, we've got two cards here, before you can have, and the reconciliation with them before you can have that union. So the next card that comes out, there will be a part in here where things are, no matter how much you're going to try and maybe be objective about things, there will be a point in here where you've not been as objective as you'd like to be, and there's some need to let go of that and allow yourself to just kind of experience it and have that creativity. That's what I feel with this Page of Cups, but I also feel like you're going to be able to access that fairly well, that you're going to be able to do that. Let's move that up a little bit so that you can definitely see it. Okay, and then we also have this King of Wands. So with the King of Wands, this feels to me a little bit like what the Six of Wands in the upright might sometimes feel like, but with the King of Wands, so the element that I'm seeing here is because of the lack of resistance that you've put up, which is just an honorable mention card, but because of the lack of resistance that you put up and the fact that you're allowing yourself to try something out that's a little bit more risky, you have this situation where you stand to gain more, and it's not necessarily getting what you want out of this situation. So if I use the example of you making contact and telling your partner everything, or your soulmate that you've been getting these readings about, if you tell your person everything, it's not necessarily about their response. More, it's about your peace that you find in yourself for having done so, that balance that you strike. But of course, this is not necessarily something that everybody wants to do. It's not that it's time for everybody to reach out, but some of you are evaluating some other decisions, like potentially starting a business, or in my case, having my first concert. So it doesn't matter if I bomb and everything's terrible. I mean, it matters to me, obviously, but that's not necessarily what the benefit is of the situation. There is more that you stand to gain here than anything that you could potentially stand to lose in the emotional sense. However, it still has fairly significant emotional potential for you. Let's see where you should be focused on this, because I feel like it does have significant emotional potential, which means this could, if it goes poorly, you could be saying, I wish I hadn't done this, or I wish I hadn't gotten to this place. So I would say you need to make sure that it is what you want to do before you get into that. And maybe, I think when we get into the extended, it's more a question of how do you have that conversation with yourself to figure out if you should be, because I mean, this is a what if I, not should I reach out, but what if I did? That's really kind of the question we're asking here. So that's making an assumption that you do want to reach out. Or if it's not reaching out, it's putting yourself out there in some way. So I think when we get into the extended, we'll look at how to evaluate that. But for now, let's look at where your area of focus should be. Oops, we got something that doesn't belong here in the reading. And anything else? Yeah, it's turned over, but it doesn't belong in the reading. Sometimes you get in there and you're like, ooh, immediately I feel like that is supposed to be there. And then other times I feel like, nope, I'm going to go ahead and put this back. And if it's supposed to be there, it'll come back. That's how I get past whatever obvious mistake I made that had that turned over. I leave it back to the universe and just say, hey, you tell me what to do. So looking at that place for you to focus, especially given everything else we've got here on the table. This is a courageous thing that some of you are considering. Page of Pentacles, a lesson to learn. Open yourself up, because you have boundless opportunity to learn in this situation. Two of Rods. This is about not necessarily having all the answers be easy answers. This is a place where you get to know yourself. You get to know a little bit about what you're made of. Looks like we've got a couple. You're going to confront something here that if you didn't already know the answer to it before, you will now. And I get the sense that you did already know the answer. So you are going to learn something, whether you may evaluate this situation and say, all right, I've watched this, I've done some thinking, maybe I watched the extended too, and I thought about how to evaluate this and determine if I'm going to go forward with, let's say, contacting your person. And you go through the process and you say, I'm not going to contact this person, you learn something about yourself during this process, regardless of the direction you take. That's what this Devil card is all about. It's all about figuring out what controls you, and it's going to be fears manifest as behaviors in a lot of cases. Sometimes we talk about excessive drinking, excessive smoking, excessive round and round overthinking. Whatever this Devil card represents to you, and it's going to be something that controls you in some way. So it doesn't have to be a substance. It can be values that you learned from a family that you find now some of those values don't necessarily feel right to you. It could be any number of things, but whatever it is, you're going to figure something out about yourself, or you're going to figure out, well, yes, I still have this hang up or this issue or whatever, and I now know how it affects me. The thing is, you already knew about it as a hang up. You already knew about it as something that affects you. It's just that you're going to learn a lot more about it. And it's great learning. That's what this Page of Pentacles is it's about. It's just, open yourself up to it. You are in the middle of it right now, but you're going to come up against something that challenges you and that wants to hold you emotionally silent for some reason. I don't think that you're going to fall for it though. Here's the Devil card again. You are going to run into, you're going to have some new understanding of yourself as a result of this. And it is your responsibility now to focus on what those places of misunderstanding are so that you can do better with it and so that you can take it and make decisions that are informed decisions. It may not be time for you where you feel like you can stop smoking or drinking or whatever, but you now know more about how it impacts you. You're going to learn something important about yourself here. And make no mistake, even if you don't have any of those vices, you'll have something that rises up for you, something that you'll be impacted by. Okay, so with the World, this is, the World in reverse says you got something that, not necessarily something to prove, but something to consider about yourself, something where you are leaving something up to learn. You are leaving up something that is not, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it, and it's not very articulate, but it feels like you have something that is unfinished that you need to learn about. So it's going to be very much related to this devil energy, very much also related to where you perceive your limitations to be as a person. With that Five of Coins, it has that same sort of feeling of you're going to figure out where the edges of your fears are, and you're going to find out what you're afraid of and what you're not afraid of. So it might be that the edges have receded considerably for some of these fears, and things that might concern you about rejection based on what you've been through, they don't concern you the way that they used to. And this is kind of where you're going to learn, hey, if I bomb on that stage tomorrow, here are all the other times I bombed that I ended up feeling like I learned a lot and things were kind of good. I'm going to be fine, or whatever it is, it's, everyone will have their own version of that, but you have to think about what that means for you as to whether or not it's worth it. So that's what we're going to get into when we get into the extended. But with this High Priestess, one of the things I really love about this is that you're going to just know so much more about the way this feels for yourself, because it's about secrets coming out. It's about you learning these boundaries for yourself and learning, they're not exactly boundaries because they're like where boundaries currently are, but they're boundaries that you can fairly systematically and effectively push back. And I feel like with this, you're figuring out some secrets about yourself in this case. Three of Swords. Okay, so these pieces that come up, your focus needs to be on the recognition of the way that it makes you feel. So if you're nervous or you're afraid to send the note, your recognition of that, not necessarily just bowling over it because you said you were going to do this or whatever else. It's about recognizing what causes you to have those emotions. Well, if you are ready to bowl over it, what causes that? Is it ego? Is it fear of not doing it? Is it because I always say something, I always do what I say I'm going to do and I would disappoint myself otherwise? Is it, and that you have to take whatever comes out of there and then weigh it, because that's going to be really important. That's going to be the thing that shows you how far along you are. There's a sense of a missed opportunity in here somewhere. There's, look for a situation where, I don't know that you necessarily miss this opportunity. I think you risk missing this opportunity. So this is a look for the situation, or look for your tendency to say, oh, well, I lost everything and now I can't rewrite it and I'm not gonna, where you accidentally deleted it, or something like that, where is there a missed opportunity, or a place where you say, well, I could just delete it and then not have to worry about sending it, or something like that. Look for that. Again, it will be very telling about the edges of the lessons that you're learning. And make no mistake, you are ready to go forward with this. Not necessarily with executing on this, but in engaging in that process. But you may find that you're kind of afraid to do that. So the Three of Wands says this too. Knight of Wands says you might be a little bit afraid to engage in the process of examining why it is, or whether it is that you should do this or not. Basically you have to decide. With the Hermit, it says whatever you think you know right now, and we heard this up here too, whatever it is that you think you know right now, there is still going to be something here for you to learn. So definitely keep your mind open. I feel that throughout here. So this urge to do whatever it is, or this opportunity to do whatever this is, whatever is standing in front of you, whether it is reaching out to your person or a different type of experience, you have come to a place where it's like you're at a crossroads, and now you have to decide what to do. So that's really what this is all about. And whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's reaching out to your person, or even if you're putting yourself out there in some other way, that's not the most important part. The most important part is what happens and what you learn as a result of doing so, which is really interesting. Not exactly what I thought was going to come out here. Let's get into the extended to figure out kind of how to evaluate this, whether, what are you going to put yourself into? What kind of thought processes will you put yourself through in order to determine how you're going to do this, or if you're going to do this? Let's get into that. So the link is down below if you would like to go there. I would love to see you there. Otherwise, I will see you again in tomorrow's reading.